Give me my frosty mug back.
What are you, nuts?
No, actually, we're fruit.
A&W. We've got that frosty mug taste.
Very warm and humid tomorrow, high near 90, with a 30% chance of thunderstorms tomorrow afternoon and night. Cooler on Wednesday. Back at 6, now to CBS.
UN weapons inspectors head back to Baghdad while Saddam Hussein mocks the U.S. and the UN. A growing hazard for people who work on computers, repetitive motion injuries. And Eye on America. Here's looking at you, kid. Private eyes. What do they really do?
Putting on a trench coat and smoking a cigarette. I mean, what did Bogart ever do that was so smart?
This is the CBS Evening News. Good evening. I'm Connie Chung, sitting in tonight for Dan Rather. President Bush and Saddam Hussein are both claiming victory tonight in their latest showdown. Saddam gave in and will allow UN weapons inspectors to search his agriculture ministry. But under a compromise, no American inspectors will be allowed inside. Iraqi officials are calling the outcome, quote, brilliant. The month-long standoff may have bought them valuable time. But did it? Barry Peterson in Bahrain explains in the first of two reports from the Persian Gulf.
As UN Ambassador Ralph Akayas arrived in Bahrain tonight, he made it clear there was still plenty to find inside the Agriculture Ministry, even if some records or materials have been removed or destroyed.
If it's big building, there are many interesting things in the Ministry of Agriculture. We say material, definitely documents and interesting equipment.
The team will examine the very structure of the Agriculture Ministry, suggesting that at one point it may have housed weapons production. And sources tell CBS what they find inside the ministry could finally tell them exactly what kind of warheads Iraq's missiles were designed to carry. So this is one of the most unusual teams the UN has ever put together, with specialists in all facets of Iraq's weapons program.
Experts in the ballistic missile area, chemical, biological, as well as nuclear.
In a late-night briefing, UN Ambassador Akayas warned his team that they will be carefully watched by the Iraqis, but team leaders insist they will not come back empty-handed. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Bahrain.
They may still be clearing the rubble from his last war, but Saddam Hussein remains defiant. The compromise over weapons inspections is being hailed here as an Iraqi victory. And Saddam's official spokesman said today that Iraq must trample UN resolutions under its feet. The exclusion of Americans from the UN team, which will finally enter the Ministry of Agriculture, is cited as proof of Saddam's triumph. American inspectors are portrayed as the root of all evil.
I describe them as tools pushed by the USA.
Iraq's Deputy Prime Minister Tariq Aziz tonight accused UN Inspection Chief Ralph Akayas of lying and charged that the entire crisis was an American-engineered charade to insult Iraq and bolster President Bush's fading popularity. Iraq, Aziz said, achieved positive results from the standoff. Public reaction to Saddam's latest one-on-one with the rest of the world was limited by the knowledge that contrary opinions are unwise here.
I have no opinion about that. That is my country. I can't speak about that. Please. Just I want peace in this world and in my country.
Ordinary Iraqis are more concerned with struggling to make ends meet under United Nations-imposed sanctions that have sent prices soaring. Saddam acknowledged the problem when he warned merchants that they were acting in the interests of the enemy if they made excessive profits. The fact that imported items are available for those who can afford them is an indication that sanctions breaking is something of a growth industry here. More active defiance of UN resolutions. The view here is that Saddam Hussein has played a cunning hand. He defied the UN, taunted the US, and then backed down before military action against him could be justified, making him look strong at a time when his arch-enemy, President Bush, appears to be in political trouble. Alan Pizzi, CBS News, Baghdad.
President Bush is sending more military might to the Persian Gulf as a signal to Iraq, a third aircraft carrier, and a second Patriot anti-aircraft missile battery to Kuwait. Mr. Bush called a meeting of his top national security advisors for tonight. Earlier, as Susan Spencer reports, the president was on the campaign trail trying to capitalize on his face-off with Saddam.
After a tense weekend dominated by Iraq, Mr. Bush got a warm welcome in solidly Republican Kent County, Michigan, as he questioned whether the Democrats are really trustworthy enough to hold high office, and age charts that some of Bill Clinton's foreign policy ideas are downright reckless. Mr. Bush clearly thinks Iraq's retreat speaks volumes about his own qualifications.
And let me just kind of put a Surgeon General's note on this speech. I have not shifted gears yet from trying to make some good things happen for this country, including yesterday, making some decisions about standing up to be sure that Saddam Hussein lives up to these UN resolutions. He's going to do it. He may not know it, but he is going to live up to those resolutions.
Using the word trust 19 times, Mr. Bush implied that Democrats couldn't be trusted to deal with Saddam or anything else. He never uses names. Others aren't so shy.
Now today, Bill Clinton stands for change, just like Jimmy Carter and Walter Mondale stood for change. Because Bill Clinton wants to raise taxes, just like they did.
Later in Wisconsin, Mr. Bush mocked the Democrats' theme of putting people first.
Oh, they say they want to put people first, but if you look real close, the people that they put first are all on the government payroll. And I stand with the flag-waving yes and the God-fearing yes and the tax-paying, hard-working people of America. A leader of a free people must understand that government can not only help, it can hinder. He must have the confidence to say, I trust you. I trust the people.
The Bush camp has long conceded that character issues would play a big role this year. The new Who Do You Trust theme may be only the opening salvo. Susan Spencer, CBS News, Appleton, Wisconsin.
Campaigning in California today, Democratic presidential nominee Bill Clinton fired right back at President Bush.
I don't believe in using phrases like read my lips, because who knows what the future holds. I have seen a president promise a kinder, gentler nation and then practice a meaner, harsher politics. I have heard the promise of a new harmony, a greater tolerance, and then seen it manifested in a bitter fight against civil rights legislation.
Still ahead on the CBS Evening News, changes in the workplace as the disabled win sweeping new rights. And the modern private eye may be keeping an eye on you.
Do you get diarrhea too?
Diarrhea sneaks upon you when you least expect it. I take Kaopectate, and it works. Kaopectate stops the diarrhea fast. It really does. I guarantee it.
Have you heard about DMX? Digital Music Express? Crystal clear CD quality music 24 hours a day without talk, static, or commercials. But the best part is, it comes right through your cable and into your stereo. You get 30 musical formats continuously updated. Choose from formats devoted to country, classical, blues, and more. Hey, we know you'll have questions, so call this number now. DMX. Someday all music will sound this good.
Now you don't need a prescription to get prescription strength medicine for itches and rashes. Because now there's maximum strength Cortaid with twice the healing medicine. Maximum strength Cortaid. Prescription strength without a prescription.
There's a new federal law in the books and in the workplace. Starting today, American businesses must do more to help millions of people with disabilities. Not with charity, but with a paycheck. Cindy Kennard reports.
Because she is blind and dependent on her guide dog, jobs have not come easy for Marta Van Leeuwen.
Hi, anybody getting up?
But the San Francisco Transit Company employing Marta has installed an expensive Braille computer to help her answer customer calls.
Good morning, Golden Gate.
A company commitment is also what put Charles Jarrett, who is deaf, into the workforce in Oklahoma.
The fact that I have a handicap should not make any difference when I apply for a job.
Until now, hiring such workers has largely been up to individual companies. But today, a sweeping federal law went into effect, prompting firms like Kerr-McGee to hold training sessions, teaching management how to implement the tough rules. Currently, only 30% of the 14 million of this country's working-age handicapped are employed, but the new law is expected to change all that.
It covers all people that have a substantial limitation in one of life's activities, such as hearing or thinking or seeing or breathing or self-care.
The new act requires businesses to remove physical and communication barriers. It orders companies to make reasonable accommodations, such as providing special equipment for the disabled. Employers can no longer ask about illness on applications. But the act also states employers will not have to make changes that cause them undue hardship. It's estimated the new act will save the government over $200 million, taking some of the disabled off the public assistance programs, putting them on the tax rolls. One company operating hospitals with 10% of its workforce disabled says hiring the handicapped has been less costly than expected. But some small businessmen are alarmed, saying the new regulations will be a financial drain.
And it's just one more notch in the gun that the government's pointing at small business.
But like it or not, companies with more than 25 employees must comply immediately with the new act or face stiff penalties. Cindy Kennard, CBS News, Los Angeles.
2 American companies have been caught trying to do business with Libya in violation of U.S. embargoes. The U.S. Treasury says the Bank of New York has been fined $225,000, and the big brewing company Anheuser-Busch paid a $25,000 fine for 3 attempts to send beer to offshore oil rigs owned by Libya. Now a look at some other stories CBS News is following. Republicans who want to change the party's anti-abortion stand left Washington today on a caravan to Houston. They'll roll through 6 states on their way to the Republican convention in Houston. At the Astrodome today, the GOP put up the party flag and got ready to roll up the AstroTurf and roll out the carpet for the delegates. It's 3 weeks to the opening gavel. In Ohio, flooding damaged 75 homes and at least 3 people are missing. The governor declared a state of emergency in 2 Ohio counties. And in Nevada, firefighters are battling a brush fire that has burned 1,000 acres. Making their job more difficult are rocky terrain, snakes, and old mine shafts in the area. Stay with us now for more of the CBS Evening News, including why slumping General Motors is such a hot sell overseas.
Whirlpool believes a great washer is one you rarely ever think about. Solidly built to do its job for years without a second thought. If you want a washer so well built you don't have to think about it, think about Whirlpool.
In the mountains of Colombia, they celebrate the richness of the land. And from this land comes the richness of Colombian coffee. That's why Maxwell House blends its coffees with Colombian beans. Rich beans, rich coffee. Some we slow roast for old-fashioned richness. Some we roast dark for the flavor of France. We buy more Colombian beans than anyone in America. Maxwell House, blended with Colombian beans. Because better beans make better coffee.
How could this happen? They've taken the secret.
Europeans are upset. The Kellogg's Mueslix cereal uses their secret recipe.
Yes, we kept in the family.
After all, they've been guarding this delicious secret forever. Ah, but this luscious blend of sweet fruit, crunchy nuts, and crisp whole grains was destined to become Kellogg's Mueslix.
Angelina, you told?
It wasn't me. I swear.
Kellogg's Mueslix, the European secret for great taste.
Meet Doran.
You read Hamlet in kindergarten?
Now meet his father, Wonder Kids, on a 48 Hours double feature Wednesday.
The real estate industry says worries about the economy are keeping Americans from buying homes. Sales of used homes fell nearly 3% in June, the 3rd monthly drop in a row. The industry hopes the recent cut in mortgage interest rates will bring buyers back into the market. The U.S. auto industry is also looking for a jump start. When it comes to producing cars more profitably and efficiently, General Motors doesn't have to look far for a good example. It turns to General Motors Europe, the very model of auto industry success. CBS News Money correspondent Ray Brady explains.
Those workers are turning out one of the most popular cars in all of Europe. It's called the Opel in Germany and the Vauxhall in Britain. Hot-selling cars made by General Motors. Hot-selling cars made by whom?
General Motors Europe is probably the great success story in the automotive world for the 1980s.
Look at the record. While General Motors was laying off thousands and losing $8.7 billion on car sales in North America last year, GM Europe was driving hard into new markets and earning $1.7 billion. Does GM Europe have a secret other car companies should know?
One thing strikes you fast about GM Europe. There are no fancy executive offices attached to its plants. Space is kept limited. That keeps management lean, efficient, and close to the operation.
So when its cars were not selling a few years ago, its lean management team went to work. Listen to Lou Hughes, the company's 43-year-old head, tell how to make a car buyers want.
It's not rocket scientist stuff, but it's got to be an appealing car. It's got to have quality, it's got to have performance.
While GM at home was turning out look-alike models, you could hardly tell a Chevy from a Caddy, GM Europe brought out a redesigned car with its own distinctive look. You know they're Opels. Cars they promoted with glitz and rock and roll. When the Berlin Wall came down, GM Europe drove through it fast, starting a new car plant in the East and signing up mechanics like Lutz Meyer Rem as car dealers, quickly outselling even mighty Volkswagen in the East.
Opel is the #1 in East Germany now.
So could this Cinderella story be repeated at mighty General Motors in the U.S.?
Absolutely no doubt at this moment that GM needs to take some of its successful ventures in Europe back to the US.
That's already happening. 3 of General Motors' top executives are from GM Europe. So what's coming out of this plant may not be just autos, but know-how that could help get American cars rolling again. Ray Brady, CBS News, Rüsselsheim, Germany.
Coming up next, computer keyboards and an epidemic of injured wrists. Tonight, should the manufacturers be held responsible?
Boy, this couch weighs a ton. Where does it go, Miss Lansbury?
Oh, right there, please. Wow. If I lifted that, I'd need bufferin for the aches and pains afterwards.
You really believe in bufferin?
I certainly do.
It's strong, huh?
Extra strength bufferin has the strongest dosage of aspirin that you can buy. And I've discovered that the buffers don't weaken it. They just help prevent aspirin stomach upset.
Shouldn't you discover the strength of bufferin? And for nighttime aches, pains, and sleeplessness, try Bufferin AF Nighttime. It's aspirin-free.
Listen, athlete's foot fungus grows beneath the surface of your skin. To cure it, you've got to get down to the root of the problem. You need Mycotin.
Mycotin penetrates the surface of your skin with miconazole to cure athlete's foot where it grows. Step up to the mic. Mycotin.
If you took the most effective diarrhea medicine and shaped it into a caplet, you'd have Imodium AD caplets, the only caplet that often stops diarrhea in one dose. Imodium AD caplets, the original prescription for one-dose relief.
Why are these kids being arrested?
Because the babies are dying and I want to save a baby.
Children, the latest weapon in the fight against abortion. Ed Bradley Street Stories, Thursday.
At the Olympics today, the U.S. basketball team beat Croatia. The country expected to give the Americans their toughest challenge. The score was 103-70. But there was a price. Magic Johnson left the game limping with a strained knee. It is not known if Johnson will miss any games. More Americans are working with computers these days, and more are complaining of work-related injuries. So what's the problem? A government study says pressure on the job could be a factor, but some workers say it isn't them, it's the equipment. Jacqueline Adams reports on repetitive motion injuries.
With 185,000 injuries at last report, some are calling this the first computer age epidemic. It struck journalists, mail sorters, supermarket clerks, transcribers, anyone who hammers away at a computer all day long. All suffering repetitive stress injury, sharp pain and numbness in the hands, wrists, elbows.
It got to the point where I just couldn't type anymore. The pain was just unbelievable pain. Go get the mayonnaise then.
Carol Soviero, mother of 3, had worked as a medical typist for more than 20 years. After 18 months on an AT&T computer keyboard, though, she says she became crippled, unable to make a living.
How do you work without your hands? I can't think of anything I can do without my hands.
Soviero is one of what could eventually be 1,000 plaintiffs in a massive product liability suit, launched against a who's who of 57 high-tech firms, all manufacturers of computer equipment.
When you see so many people hurt, all of whom use the same equipment, you begin to realize that the equipment must be responsible.
Attorney Stephen Phillips contends the manufacturers deliberately marketed computer keyboards they knew were unsafe.
There were people internally in these companies who were telling them that there are real problems here, and they simply disregarded those warnings and marketed the product without telling the users that this was going to be something they should look out for.
Of the major manufacturers, Eastman Kodak, AT&T, and NCR all refused to comment. IBM, the defendant in 30% of the cases, says its keyboard design alone is not to blame.
I wish I had been warned that this could happen.
Though IBM says it's up to the worker to use the equipment safely, injured newspaper editor Gail Sims disagrees. She and 19 other employees at the Philadelphia Inquirer are suing to force the manufacturers both to admit their guilt and to change the technology, which they say has changed their lives irreparably. Jacqueline Adams, CBS News, Philadelphia.
You've just poured the milk on your bowl of Kellogg's Crispix when something keeps you from it. Good thing Crispix has a special shape that stands up to milk. So even if you can't get to it right away, Crispix still stays crispy and great tasting.
They're still crispy.
Kellogg's Crispix, the taste that waits for you.
Have you tried Folgers Coffee Singles?
One coffee
In its own filter.
Singular sensation, every single cup you brew. It's like brewing a whole pot. One cup at a time. Singular sensation, fresh brewed mornings for you. There's ground roast in here.
In its own filter.
Folgers, singular sensation, just for one.
Folgers Coffee Singles. One sensational way to wake up.
Look at me, enjoying a crisp red apple. Even with my dentures, thanks to Super Polygrip.
Super Polygrip holds so tight, many denture wearers can enjoy more of their favorite foods.
Even apples.
Super Polygrip.
After examining, testing, analyzing, it's a fact. You can buy new Preparation H hydrocortisone cream with the maximum strength available without a prescription. It has a level of medicine that was prescribed by doctors for years. New Preparation H hydrocortisone cream. It's new, it's maximum strength, and it effectively relieves problem itch. New Preparation H hydrocortisone cream. Prescription strength without a prescription.
If your doctor has recommended Metamucil and you like the results, but you don't like those glasses of thick liquid, change to FiberCon. Get the same fiber action in easy-to-swallow tablets. Get doctor-recommended FiberCon.
There's an awful lot of snooping going on in this country. Did you know that there are more than 25,000 private eyes? Maybe you think you've seen enough movies to know what they do. Well, Mark Phillips has done some snooping of his own. He'll show you what PIs really do in tonight's Eye on America.
Once it was Spade, and Marlowe, and Bogey, and Mitchum. Now it's Terry Lasky, Private Eye. Some things never change.
Bernie, this is Marlowe.
This is Lasky in room 304.
All right, driver, let's go.
Some things may never change, but let's face it, some things will never be the same either.
Her hair was the color of gold and old paintings. She was giving me the kind of look I could feel in my hip pocket.
Most of these characters you see in the film, they live in a room with a bare light bulb, and and it's always Robert Mitchum or somebody like that. So it's different. It's not the way we do it.
Today they tend to pound the keyboard, not the pavement.
The modern-day private investigator rides more on his computer than he does in a 32 Dodge.
And having found his prey in some databank, the modern private investigator is less likely to pack his Smith & Wesson .38 revolver than he is his Sony 8mm video camera. Terry and his partner cameraman Neil.
Is that him?
On a stakeout. Cut to the chase.
Oh, come on, man.
They're in pursuit of a man suing for millions because of injuries he says he suffered in a construction accident.
I can't see him. You see his car?
I got him.
They're trying to show the man can get around quite well, and does.
All right, I got him. Oh, he's walking pretty fast. He's looking good.
Like so much else in the working world, the Private Eye's job has changed too. Spade and Marlowe may have gotten involved with beautiful women and tracked down murderers in exotic places. Today's Private Eye is more likely to spend endless hours on a stakeout, sitting in a station wagon in Brooklyn.
And let's go to the videotape.
And they've got the pictures to prove it.
This is a woman who had a hysterectomy.
The woman who brought a $1 million malpractice suit claiming a botched operation forced her to walk with a cane.
This is the day where she's shopping with no cane. Oh, well, now there she is at the picnic. And the cane's in the car. And even though she spends a good part of the day, as you'll see, drinking beer, she still doesn't need the cane to hold her up.
So much for the $1 million suit. The woman settled for a lot less. Or the man who wasn't supposed to be active, but who was caught on the golf course. He not only cheats in his medical claims, he cheats at golf, too.
He looks back over his shoulder there. Where is that guy? And he's not in sight. I think I'll take another shot.
The claim, like the man's illicit score, considerably reduced.
We call this film The Chainsaw Massacre.
And the executive with the malpractice suit for a back injury that he said kept him from sitting, standing, or walking. Taped climbing a ladder and using a chainsaw to cut down a tree.
That tree's going. There it goes.
The suit was dropped.
The suit was dropped.
No money.
Zero.
Some of America's most expensive home videos for the people caught on them. Terry's clients in the insurance industry estimate upwards of $20 billion a year in fraudulent claims. Greed was behind Bogart's San Francisco search for the famous Golden Falcon. And in New York, greed is the stuff of Terry Lasky's old movies, too. His first jobs were on film, where more primitive equipment meant using more guile. Like the time they posed as film students to get shots of a man who claimed he couldn't work. Or the little old lady who claimed she needed a wheelchair. She needed it, all right, to push her mother around town.
And bingo, the fat lady sings.
Compare this to Bogey's two-fisted approach.
What is Bogart? Putting on a trench coat and smoking a cigarette? I mean, what did Bogart ever do that was so smart?
With appropriate apologies, this is now the stuff Private Eye dreams are made of. I'm Mark Phillips in New York for Eye on America.
Better watch what you do. And that's our news. I'm Connie Chung for Dan Rather. I'll see you again tomorrow night. Thank you for joining us, and for all of us at CBS News, good night.
Experience CBS News.
Next on the TV8 News, live at 6, Governor Branstad says he wants to keep all historic sites open despite budget cuts. Dana Carden with details coming up.
Also tonight, Michelle Parker with details on a little bug that may be threatening your lawn. And what's down that drain anyway? Steve Oswald with the unsettling answer.
Connie's warm forecast and Heidi with the sports challenge. TV8 News is next.
It's the Dodge Factory Authorized Clearance. Get up to $1,600 total savings on Shadow.
Put a new Dodge in your garage.
Shadow America's starting list price as low as $72.92 after cash back.
Put a new Dodge in your garage.
Most owners of Centris, Tercels, Escorts, and Cavaliers who test drove Shadow felt it was the superior car.
Put a Dodge in your garage.
And if you don't have a garage for your new Dodge, build one. See your nearest Dodge dealer today.
There's a Target grand opening near you. For locations, call 1-800-800-8800.
I like to get a new car every 2 or 3 years.
Now Cadillac offers a 30-month lease on the Cadillac Seville.
Why pay for the whole car when you only need to pay for the portion you use?
Since you simply pay for the period of time you drive, monthly payments total only $17,670 after your down payment. See your Cadillac dealer for details. It could change the way you think about American automobiles.
Thank you for watching KCCI TV8 in Des Moines. And now from TV8, Iowa's news leader, Paul Rhodes, Kevin Connie, Connie McBurney with weather, and Heidi Soliday sports. This is TV8 News, live at 6.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. Governor Branstad says he is opposed to any effort to close down 8 of Iowa's historic sites.
The sites are set to be closed August 1st, victims of Iowa's budget cuts. The governor says, though, he'll find a way to keep the facilities open. TV8's Dana Carden reports from Haverhill on one site targeted to be closed.
Step through the door of the Matthew Edel blacksmith shop in Haverhill and you step back through Iowa's past. In here you'll find old tools and rusted horseshoes, a snapshot of our history. Not restored or recreated, but preserved exactly as it was used by a German immigrant. Back before the industrial age, back when blacksmiths were as common as Casey stores are today.
Without the community, the blacksmith can't survive. And I am confident that the community could not have survived without the blacksmith.
Now the survival of this blacksmith shop is in question again. It's one of 6 historic sites in the state targeted to be closed by the Iowa Historical Society to save $120,000 as a result of budget cuts. Other sites include the Montauk Governor's Mansion in Claremont and the American Gothic Home in Eldon. Historical Society officials say they have no choice given the lack of money. Historians say that's a shame.
If we close the doors, why, we will close the door on our past, and I think that's kind of a bummer.
Pippin isn't alone in believing that historic sites such as this blacksmith shop should remain open. Governor Branstad also believes that something needs to be done to make sure that this piece of history isn't forgotten.
I don't think we should be closing historical sites.
In fact, Branstad appeared upset that he wasn't informed that the sites are being closed down until he saw it on the news. He says he'll work with the Historical Society to see to it that the sites remain open.
Cultural Affairs has had its budget reduced like others have, but I think we need to look at innovative ways to maintain access to the public to those sites.
Those innovative ways could include charging admission to places like the Edel Blacksmith Shop or to secure private funding. If nothing is done, this door to our past will be closed, a victim of the times. Dana Carden, TV8 News.
Among other historic sites in jeopardy of closing are Toolsboro Mounds near Wapello and the Abbey Gardner Sharp Cabin in Arnold's Park.
Still no charges in the case of $750,000 missing at the State Department of Revenue. Investigators believe the Department of Revenue employee who lives in this house in Knoxville, Lisa Leslie, wrote bogus corporate refund checks and collected the money. Leslie resigned from the department. Tonight, the state auditor says his investigation won't be complete until sometime about midweek. Authorities say that Leslie could be charged with theft, and they say more than one person could be facing charges in the case.
And no charges yet in the Madison County case of alleged arson that left one person dead. Judy Bergione died yesterday of burns received when she and her husband Henry allegedly set fire to their neighbor's house. Henry Bergione remains in serious condition. Authorities say arson and manslaughter charges could be filed later this week.
Back here in Des Moines, more protests at City Hall tonight as supporters of a police review board promise to take their case to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission. TV8 City Hall reporter Todd Magel live downtown with an update now. Todd?
Well, Kevin, you recall in the past several months, a handful of protesters involved in this civilian review board support process have gone so far as getting themselves arrested to make a point. And that point is the police department, they say, needs a group of civilian overseers, a group to weed out problems that arise out of a perceived police brutality and other police problems. And the group spoke tonight in front of Des Moines City Hall. The members are asking for another meeting with the full council on this matter. If not, they promise to request some sort of mediation. They even promise a crisis situation if the council does not meet with them. Also, as you mentioned, they've asked the U.S. Civil Rights Commission to intervene and investigate the Des Moines Police Department and these brutality charges. For its part, the council has continued to vote against a civilian review board, but did, of course, make a few changes last month in how the police department reviews itself. Now, the council tonight has given no indication that it will change its mind on this matter, and that left it up now to the supporters of a civilian review board to possibly cause more demonstrations. Tonight, they did not. They listened quietly, and then they left, but they say that if they don't meet with the council again, there will be more disruptions. We'll have more on this story and other council action, including free bus rides on Des Moines' north side coming up tonight at 10. Kevin?
All right, Todd Magel at City Hall. Thanks a lot.
A tiny insect known as the aphid is causing some big problems for central Iowa lawns this summer. TV8's Michelle Parker reports on what you can do about it.
Lawn care specialist Brian Rudish talks to yet another customer about the lawn aphid.